All right, here we are on another lovely day in America. Isn't it great? Isn't it great? Isn't it great to be an American today in America? You know, we get to travel here at the United West, and let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, there is nothing better than coming back, no matter where you go, even to a wonderful Italy. Nothing better. Coming into the United States and you see those two rows. One says, U.S. citizens here. And you go on that line, you see that big American flag. What a great country we have. And that's why, gentlemen and viewers and listeners, we fight these battles we do, because this country is what it is because so many people have given their lifeblood for it. And we never forget that. And so many young kids are doing that today. And we will fight these evil, I almost said a bad word. Started with a B, but I won't say that word because I know we can say that, but I don't use words like that.
I do.
You do, I know. But in any event, Tom Trento, WSBR 740 AM on the radio. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, actually right now it's about 6 minutes after 4 on Tuesday, October 21st. What a show we have for you today. I want to start out, you can see if you're watching the show, our logo behind us, Enemies of the State. I want to start out with reading a little bit from the resume of one of the subjects of our Enemies of the State series, Mr. Nihad Awad, the executive director of Council on American Islamic Relations, or as you'll see at the end of the show, Council on Islamic Relations. Cut the American out. Watch the end of the show and you know what I'm talking about. Let me read from Nihad Awad's personal blog, his resume, what he believes about himself. In 1990, I need music, like do-do-do-do-do-do. Can you hum that, Mark?
I could play Rush for you.
Can you hum it? In 1990, how about you, Damon? Can you hum some music?
No.
In 1997, Nihad served on Vice President Al Gore's Civil Rights Advisory Panel to the White House Commission on Aviation Security and Safety. Are you friggin' kidding me?
That's got to be. That's
Gore,
nuts.
Al Jazeera, remember he sold Current TV
right.
to Al Jazeera, and we renamed him Al Jazeera. They were doing their dirty deed back in 97, it looks like.
Well, they've been doing their dirty deeds for decades before that. Hello, Fox. Can you watch the Henhouse for me?
Or better yet, put Al Capone as charge of security. You know, give me a break.
You watch our show today in this series, Enemies of the State, as we expose CAIR for a cultural and jihadist terrorist organization. And that's not just us speaking hyperbole, though we like hyperbole at times, but we're laying out a factual record. We're laying out the record of the Holy Land Foundation, and this is a trial that concluded in 2008. It's 6 years ago now. We're laying it out because this organization went after two friends of ours, Frank Gaffney, Center for Security Policy. We have a special guest from that organization that'll be on in a little bit, and General Jerry Boykin. And when a terrorist organization goes after American heroes, they will hear from us. They're not real happy we found out about that, but that's the plan, to disrupt, disable, destroy the operational capabilities, all legally, of CAIR in the United States of America. We're putting that out. And the way we're going to do it, no secret meetings here, the way we're going to do it, we're going to use the American rules that you're using against us, against you, to destroy your miserable house in our civilizational jihad to keep America American. That's a simple plan. One way to start this is to show back during Operation Protective Edge. And folks, our big idea today is that a global Muslim Brotherhood entity has issued directives that go into the Muslim Brother entities around the world, even here in the United States. And one of those Muslim Brother entities is CAIR National and CAIR's affiliates. But CAIR also has a network of other Islamic organizations. We're going to unravel this rat's nest of organizations and show you there is a direct, contemplative, focused effort to influence Americans against Israel. Now, that may sound like, well, big deal. We all know that. But as things heat up in the future, as Israel's being encircled by the Islamic State in many areas, or Islamic State sympathizers like the Hamas and Hezbollah, things will heat up. And there will be, again, protests in the street here, led by CAIR, as they were here during Operation Protective Edge. You don't think so? Watch this show today. We're going to show you Nihad Awad leading Hamas demonstrations, supporting the Hamas. Just a few months ago, Operation Protective Edge. Show you how a leading Muslim Brotherhood spiritual leader gave orders for this to happen. Check out what happened in front of the White House a few months back during Operation Protective Edge at a Hamas rally. Yeah, what's happening here to our listeners driving, we wanted you to hear the agitated, aggravated, angry crowd. And we want you to go home and look at The United West. We leave our shows up for a whole day, then they go on our YouTube site. Right now, Manny the Marine is being attacked by Hamas supporters in front of the White House in Washington, D.C. during Operation Protective Edge. Why is he being attacked?
Because he has an Israeli flag.
He held up. He had the balls to hold up. This is a guy that did several tours in Iraq as a combat Marine.
He's getting spit on right now.
He's being spit on. He had the strength of character to support Israel during Operation Protective Edge. And you can watch it as it's going on or listen to it. And he held up an Israeli flag, and that was it. It's like holding up red in front of bulls.
Here comes the police to... and now, what's really amazing about the whole thing, I went up there to D.C. to actually...
You were there, that's right.
Yeah, and we actually did a march on CAIR after this. But it's completely a CAIR-sponsored event, a CAIR-sponsored rally. And we saw that same thing happen down in Miami, Tom, where we just... Another Hamas rally supported by CAIR. And I think we're going to have a guest on in a little bit that's going to really nail the coffin on this.
Put all of this together. And we're going to integrate it with our work on, don't lose sight, folks, of our Enemies of the State investigation, where we're focusing on this financing trial that took place in 2007. There was a mistrial, then 2008 retried. 5 individuals convicted. These 5 individuals, 4 of whom were at a secret meeting in 1993, where the genesis of CAIR in October 1993 was formulated, and the leader of CAIR was hand-selected in October 1993 at a secret meeting. We're going to show you today that those individuals who were at this meeting, those 27 individuals, one of whom is Nihad Awad, most of them, of the 27, were members of various Hamas affiliates, real live Hamas affiliates. Now, this is before Hamas was designated as a terrorist organization. This is 1993. But Hamas is still doing terrorist acts. Bill Clinton just simply hasn't designated it yet at that point. So that's where we're going. We're going to show you a little bit about the Palestine Committee, central part of all of this. But right now, let's bring on our special guest. Let's bring on Kyle Shideler. Is he there?
He is here. Yes, he is. He is definitely here. Hold on. It would help if I turned his mic up.
Yes, it would.
It would help if the host...
And then I always help.
I swallowed a frog.
Kyle, how you doing?
Hey, how you guys doing down there?
I'm just going to say hello to you while Tom finishes coughing and take us in a sip of water here.
Okay.
I think he's back.
Yeah. We put him up?
Yeah, I will. I'm trying to... I only got 2 hands. Anyway, but...
Kyle just... earlier this year, did a 74-page PDF file for the Center for Security Policy titled Command and Control, the International Union of Muslim Scholars, the Muslim Brotherhood, and the Call for Global Intifada during Operation Protective Edge. And if that title doesn't basically explain what he's going to link together for you, I don't know what would. I think we have Tom back.
I'm back with...
Well, not yet.
Not yet.
Back, right.
Not
yet, you're back. Now you're back.
I'm burning the
okay?
candle
Are
on
you
both
okay?
ends. Yeah, I got a little cold, but that won't stop us. Kyle, let's do this. We're going to, I'm okay. We're going to, we want to integrate your amazing work on this unbroken chain from a spiritual leader of the Muslim Brotherhood down to Nihad Awad in Washington, D.C., where I believe you videotaped him in a very unique moment that we're going to show. And we're going to integrate this into some of our research regarding the Palestine Committee, the IAP, Islamic Association for Palestine, the Holy Land Foundation, and what else, Mark? I mean, you've been doing a lot of the research here.
The Holy Land Foundation, Palestine Committee, all wrapping up and showing that it's a Muslim Brotherhood organization which reports directly to Hamas and directly oversees all the operations in the Muslim Brotherhood arena, including CAIR and everybody else. It was actually founded by, and we'll go into this documentation. This is what gets me. When Nihad Awad says, I have no idea about the Muslim Brotherhood or Hamas. I am just so shocked that you even saying this. Well, he sits on the board of the Palestine Committee, and which reports directly to Hamas. It doesn't get any more clearer than a link than that.
No, and we're going to show that connection through federal documents. Now, the material we're presenting is simply we went into the federal files of the Holy Land Foundation trial and pulled out material, and we're presenting what the prosecutors did, the federal prosecutors in 2008, to gain convictions on five individuals, but also to identify close to 300 individuals and organizations as UCCs, unindicted co-conspirators, UCC. Nihad Awad, who runs CAIR, he avoided becoming an individual UCC, but his organization, CAIR, has been identified. And notwithstanding their efforts, CAIR's efforts to have the court reverse that, the court said just the opposite. Nah, 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 nah. You are Hamas. And we're going to show you that. But let's bring Kyle on. Kyle, explain to the audience, you have a large radio audience right now live at 18 minutes after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, WSBR 740 in South Florida. We are on internet TV, and portions of this go up on Breitbart TV. Tell us why you conducted your study and what your conclusions were. And you're the TIO, right? The Threat Information Officer for Center for Security Policy?
Oh, that's right, Tom. So what we do in the TIO is we try to track current events as they relate to Sharia law, the Muslim Brotherhood, in both the United States and abroad. And what we noticed during the lead up to and then during the conflict itself, Operation Protective Edge, was we saw coming out of the International Union of Muslim Scholars a series of calls for a global intifada. Now, the International Union of Muslim Scholars was founded by a man named Yusuf al-Qaradawi. Qaradawi has a very long and respected history with the Muslim Brotherhood. He personally studied under Hassan al-Banna, the Brotherhood's founder. He was twice offered the position of General Supreme Guide, and he turned it down both times because he wanted to go on to do kind of larger things.
Kyle, hang on 1 second. Kyle,
okay.
Hang on 1 second. Guys, do you have a little video of Qaradawi?
Yes.
All right. Can Kyle hear this when we play it?
Yes, he can.
All right.
He can
Unless you understand Arabic.
Well, you're going to have to...
I'm going to... well, we have an Arabic...
We have Arabic
translator here. Kyle, we have about a 1-minute piece of Qaradawi where he praises Adolf Hitler. I think we need to let the audience know and see the individual that you did your very impressive study regarding his dictates just a couple of months ago. This guy's alive and well and operating. Let's play it. Let's have our Arabic translator read it for the listening audience. Here we go.
The last punishment was carried out by Hitler by means of all the things he did to them. Even though they exaggerated this issue, he managed to put them in their place. This was divine punishment for them. Allah willing, the next time will be at the hand of the believers. To conclude my speech, I'd like to say that the only thing I hope for is that as my life approaches its end, Allah will give me an opportunity to go to the land of jihad and resistance, even if in a wheelchair. I will shoot Allah's enemies, the Jews, and they will throw a bomb at me. And thus, I will seal my life with martyrdom. Praise be to Allah, Lord of the world. Allah's mercy and blessings upon you.
Okay, folks. That was not a Saturday Night Live sketch.
No, it wasn't.
That was the individual that Kyle conducted a massive research study on. The individual calling right now and leading the Muslim Brotherhood worldwide. This was him speaking not too long ago, and his dream in life is to kill the Jews. When he said that at that speech, the audience went nuts. And at the same time, the Israelis bomb him and kill him as he's killing them, and that seals his martyrdom. This is the way these people think. That's why this is a death cult that needs to be resisted against. Kyle, continue with your study, please.
Yeah, I mean, just going on what you mentioned, I mean, Qaradawi is the man that provided the fatwa to permit Hamas to engage in suicide bombings. His organization, the International Union of Muslim Scholars, provided the 2004 fatwa to permit the targeting of U.S. Both troops and civilians in Iraq under the argument that any individual, any American in Iraq, whether he was a contractor or a soldier or whatever, was a legitimate target because he was supporting occupation. This is the man that called for jihad in Syria, called for jihad in Egypt, called for the death of Muammar Gaddafi. And he's a very serious individual. As I was saying earlier, he's long history with the Muslim Brotherhood. When he calls for things to happen, the tendency is for them to happen. I just want to quote briefly from an introduction to Qaradawi's, one of Qaradawi's works. Qaradawi wrote a book called The Priorities of the Islamic Movement in the Coming Phase. And his editor, who translated this into English, wanted to get across how important Qaradawi was. And so he wrote in the introduction, and I quote, "This book is born out of Qaradawi's vast experience in the field of dawah and movement, and should not be merely taken as advice, but directions, as we are living in a time where everybody has advice, but few are qualified to give directions." So Qaradawi is a man who is understood by Islamists, by followers of the Muslim Brotherhood, and others in the Islamic movement, to be a man who can give orders and have those things done. So when we saw the International Union of Muslim Scholars and Qaradawi was issuing calls for intifada, very specifically both in the Arab world and in what they called the free nations, or among the free peoples, we knew to expect that there would in fact be action. And so what we did was we tried to correlate the statements made by the IUMS with the actual behavior of protesters on the ground in America and in Europe and in the Arab states. And what we found was that there was in fact a correlation. So when IUMS calls for a day of action on July 18th, 2014, for instance, we saw in fact activities on July 18th and the day subsequent to that. So that was what we wanted to be able to document for our readers, was the ability of a Sharia jurist, an Islamic jurist like Qaradawi, to issue calls and have those calls carried out through the Muslim Brotherhood network, through the global Muslim Brotherhood.
Okay, now this is critically important, ladies and gentlemen, because I think the title, I know the title of your study is Command and Control. Now, it's very important, Kyle, for our audience to understand, our viewers and listeners, that when President Obama talks about Islam as a religion of peace, he's missing the fact, and there are Muslims out there that want peace, but the core elements of Islamic leadership view their struggle in this world as a military battle to suppress the kafirs, to suppress the unbelievers. And the command and control are military terms that these individuals are using to set up this network and structure to mobilize millions of Muslims worldwide to unleash destruction. And this happened with the Danish cartoonist, didn't, a few years back?
Actually, that's exactly right. And Qaradawi himself notes that behavior. He points out that it was he and his organization who called for those protests. And to talk a little bit about what it means to have command and control, this is again a quote from Qaradawi, and he's speaking on Al Jazeera, the Qatari network, which is very close to the Muslim Brotherhood. And he says, "Kings are rulers over people, but scholars are rulers over kings. And our Ummah is fine, and Allah willing, it will be victorious in the end if the scholars carry out their role. The scholars must warn the Ummah to stand behind it and call on it to take actions. We have called on it," meaning the IUMS and Qaradawi, "at times, and the Ummah rose up."
Wow.
So he is saying himself. We are not putting words in his mouth. We are saying himself, that he says himself that he has the ability to do this, that he and his network have the ability to do this, and we simply show that when he claims to have this ability, all evidence suggests that he in fact does.
And the reason why this is important, ladies and gentlemen, is not just to do an analysis of something that occurred a couple of months ago and we learned from it, and that's very, very nice. It's an academic exercise. We are preparing for a cultural battle. We are preparing for a real live battle. Just yesterday, day before, we had an Islamic State devotee attack a couple of soldiers up in Canada. And many of our dear friends who are parents of military people have gone a little bit dark because the Islamic State has issued threats to go after parents of military participants. We're preparing right now. And here's the beauty of all of this.
Let's not forget about Oklahoma. That's a direct tie back to CAIR and everything straight back up the chain.
We did the story on Oklahoma with a beheading down there. And we're going to tie this together. It's really fascinating. Historically, Islam comes out of the 6th century, and immediately the mosque becomes the center of command and control. There was a military component of Islam from day one. Not everybody, the Jews and Christians of the day, didn't want to be convinced by an illiterate guy saying, God sent me a moon rock, and, you got to believe me. Imagine that story, right? They said, take a walk. He said, oh, I also have a sword, and I'll chop your head off. Okay, well, then maybe we'll listen to you. So Islam learned very quickly to wield a sword, gets results. So their military component, part of their doctrine, became centralized in the command control of what type of building, folks?
A mosque.
The mosque.
Or Islamic Center.
The Islam, and it carries on today. Joseph Qaradawi in, where's he now, in Qatar?
Yes, he's still operating out of Qatar.
Yeah. He issues a proclamation. Now they have not only horseback going to the mosques, but Twitter and all these various accounts. I think Kyle will tell us that his capabilities on Operation Protective Edge were mitigated because of a cyber attack against Qaradawi's website. We'll get to that in a minute. Very interesting. But Qaradawi puts out the directive. Where do you think it goes? To the imams in the Muslim Brotherhood mosques in America. They go down through their networks and say, guys, here's what we have to do. And then you see the Arab street erupting. Damon.
Yeah, when you're talking about the mosque or Islamic Center being the center of Islamic life and also a military base, their structure of Qaradawi being that 4-star general and working its way down to where Awad might be considered a 1-star and then breaking it down through the other layers, where Kyle will also show you where you could see him talking to some of his lieutenants. But there is a total military structure, not it's not just a military compound, but the way that they act is very much.
Well, there's actually
like
a
that.
graph of it. We actually have a graph of all that, of actually how it works.
Let's see it. Let's see it.
And
I don't think you could see it, Kyle. Will Mark Ed describe that?
yeah, Caliphate would be basically the International Muslim Brotherhood up in the upper right-hand corner, and they report directly to the Palestine Committee, and the Palestine Committee reports back to the international. So they have a one and two-way conversation right back and forth between there, and the Palestine Committee is in essence the central committee, and during the Holy Land Foundation trial, we discovered that it controlled three organizations: the Islamic Association for Palestine, the Holy Land Foundation, and the UASR. And that is the basic structure. So when Caliphate gives a message from the International Brotherhood, it comes right down to the Palestine Committee and right down to the two organizations. And that's what the Holy Land Foundation trial actually showed.
Yeah, the Holy Land trial established this graphic that we have up, that there's an organizational structure, and we've been using the analogy of the mafioso with its organizational structure, and we're shifting that analogy a little bit today to a military doctrine with the 4-star and the 1-star.
And the military part of that comes back in that document, which I didn't describe earlier. The Palestine Committee reports directly also to Hamas, and so you have this little communication network going on between all three of them, and that's the basic structure.
If for those of you driving in your car 32 minutes after 4 o'clock on the 21st of October, Tuesday in South Florida, Tom Trento, your host, Enemies of the State, the name of the show. Kyle Shideler with us from Center for Security Policy. He oversees the Threat Information Operations, TIO, a little close to TID. You don't want to be a TID, Kyle.
Total Islamic dirtbag.
Yeah, you don't want to be a TID. Your TIO's okay.
Tom, you were pointing out the global aspect of this, and it's important to remember, in 1982, the Muslim Brotherhood puts together a document which some people in counterterrorism call the Project.
Right.
It's also known as the Global Project for Palestine. And it's found in the home of a man named Youssef Nada, who is a self-admitted member of the Muslim Brotherhood and a financier. And he was being raided for alleged connections to Al-Qaeda by Swiss police, and they never got him on that. But he did admit to being a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. They find this document, and the document lists a number of points, what they call points of departure, explaining what the plan for the Muslim Brotherhood globally is going to be. And one of those plans is to establish local and national groups in order to support jihad in Palestine.
Wait, say that over again, Kyle. Say that over again.
Okay, so
a secret document was found, and here's one of the points in the secret document.
This is point 11. This is point of departure number 11. To adopt the Palestinian cause as part of the worldwide Islamic plan, with the policy plan and by means of jihad, since it acts as the keystone of the renaissance of the Arab world today. And among that, and then later on it has a list of what it calls elements. And one of those elements is to create a modest nucleus of jihad in Palestine and to nourish it in order to maintain the flame that will light the road towards the liberation of Palestine. And that modest nucleus of jihad that they're talking about, evidence would suggest that that's Hamas, is what they mean.
Wow. Now, that 1982 document that was found called the Project, how has it help our audience, our listeners and viewers, understand how that document has found its way to CAIR's offices in Washington, D.C.?
Okay, so you mentioned the Holy Land Foundation trial and the evidence that we acquired out of that. One of those was a 1992 memo from the Islamic Association of Palestine, which I think you guys have probably covered with your audience a fair bit. But the Islamic Association of Palestine was one of the organs of the Palestine Committee. But this is what it said. And it talks about establishing Palestine committees, not just in the United States, where the Holy Land trial tells us there was a Palestine committee, but also in the Arab, Islamic, and Western nations. And what is their job? Well, the memo says their job is to make the Palestinian cause victorious and to support it with what it needs of media, That's very important. Of media, money, and men, and all of that. And that's word for word from the IAP 92 memo. So the purpose of the Palestine Committee is to provide media assistance, financial assistance, which would be the Holy Land Foundation, and men. So we can see a direct line from the establishment of the project through to the Holy Land Foundation trials. So in 82, the brothers are instructed to establish local organizations in order to conduct this behavior. And by 1992, they have in fact done so.
Wow.
And that's beautiful. An important transmission to document.
All right, now let me bring the audience together here as you're driving your automobile in South Florida, 21st October. What is it, 36 minutes after 4 p.m. East Coast time. Hello to our friends in California. What is it, 1 o'clock, 36 minutes after 1. Our friends in Europe, 4, 5, 6 hours, 7 hours different out there. Hello, everybody. If you're watching on theunitedwest.org, we thank you for your viewership and your listeningship. Listeningship, is that a word? Your listeningship. We thank you that many people are becoming aware of CAIR. Many leaders, religious leaders, are contacting us saying, man, these guys always put on these interfaith events. You guys, the United West, has alerted us to their terrorist nature, their foundings. You're supporting it with evidence from a federal trial. And we're backing off from their interfaith stuff. So keep that going on, folks. But we're doing this analysis, and it's difficult work. And we're trying to simplify it for our listening and viewing audience quickly. But understand, in 2007, our federal government tried the case with a massive amount, you know, like we like to say, 20 pounds in a 5-pound bag. And it was too much for the jurors. And there was a mistrial. Then they streamlined the case and retried it. And the jurors said, oh, now we understand it. So we're doing the same thing. We have some slides for you right now that will streamline what we're talking about here, the interconnections of this mafioso-type organization, the Muslim Brotherhood, with its CAIR entity. And our goal is to alert you to Council on American Islamic Relations activities in the United States. They're un-American, anti-American, anti-Israeli. And we have factual evidence from a trial, factual evidence from this report Kyle has done at the Center for Security Policy, and factual evidence from the Hamas demonstrations. And we're going to show you Nihad Awad at one of those. But first, let's put up some of the slides, Mark, and tell us what we're looking at.
Yeah, we're looking at actually some of the captured documents that were used in the Holy Land Foundation trial. And you can see on the lower left-hand corner, these are actually the documents that they used. And this is the one in Arabic. And we go to the next, that same document, which has been, translated for us. And that's what it says, and it's translated for them by the federal government. But what we have done, we've actually made it a lot simpler to look at. And this particular document here is what the last document just said. And it says, Tom?
I'll read it, yeah. You pulled it out. We just made a pretty slide out of it, that's
right.
all. We're looking at now the Palestine Committee, in essence, the Central Committee. Organizationally, the Muslim Brotherhood had to have some sort of management system in the United States. They put the Palestine Committee together. And these are not, people make jokes about Muslims, camel jockeys and all that. These are not camel jockeys. These are brilliant scholars, PhDs, engineers. This is a formidable enemy of the state. We must take these people very, very seriously because they're very good at what they do. We're better, but they're very good at what they do. Let me read this. This is Article 3. The nature of the committee's work, quote, is to serve the Muslim-Palestinian cause on the American front. They don't even call this America. They call it the American front because to them, the globe is Islamic and America is the front battle of the Islamic Caliphate to be ultimately established. Let me read the rest of it.
Yeah.
The American front, in cooperation and coordination with the Ikhwan. Kyle, what does Ikhwan mean, Kyle?
It means brothers. It's short for Ikhwan al-Muslimin, the Muslim brothers, the Muslim Brotherhood.
In their article, the Palestine Committee, the ruling individuals say, we're here for the Palestinian cause, And we're going to coordinate this with the Muslim Brothers inside America and out. This is in their articles. Next. Article 4, the committee's duties. The duties of the committee is focused on supervision and follow-up of all work and issues relating to drawing the general strategy, the programs, the policies, approving the budget, and the employees. So far, this Palestine committee is running whatever entities that are under it. Next. Article 4 continues that the issues related to the Occupied Land Fund, which was the previous name to the Holy Land Foundation, these are charitable entities that raise money all over the world in Richardson, Texas, then send that money essentially to the Hamas. The Hamas sends it to the various Zakat committees that distribute it to kill Jews, a portion of it, $12 million of it or so. And the drawing of the general strategy, the improvement of the plan. What we're establishing here is an unbroken line of management and administrative control by the Palestine Committee over the various entities underneath it. And we're going somewhere with this point. Go ahead.
The chairman of the Palestine Committee.
Now, who heads up the Palestine Committee when this was started in 88, right?
Yes.
The Palestine Committee was started in, and the Hamas was started in 87. The Palestine Committee in 88, because immediately they said, we got to help the Hamas kill the Jews and regain the promised land here. Well, the person who started it on our screen is Musa Abu Marzouk. He started this as the founder in 1988. What is he today? Kyle or Damon or Mark or
He's
anybody?
the deputy chairman for Hamas Political Bureau, I believe.
What did you say, Kyle? Musa Abu Marzouk, who started the Palestine Committee in 1988, is what today?
He's deputy chairman of the Political Bureau of Hamas, if I'm remembering correctly.
You're remembering correctly.
He is also a specially designated global terrorist by Bill Clinton in 95 and by George Bush in 2001. And just right there, just stop right there and think about it. The Palestine Committee is set, founded, and run by a specially designated global terrorist. And Marzouk, who used to be the head of Hamas, is now the deputy chief of Hamas. Set up.
And he runs their military end, too.
And it's just amazing. You do not get any more direct connection to terrorism than that.
And the way the apologists for CAIR spin this is, oh, well, Marzouk started the Palestine Committee before he was a designated special global terrorist.
Oh, he was an angel prior to that.
He was an angel. He was a friggin' Islamic angel.
He was hanging out with Gabriel.
And then one day he becomes a terrorist.
And then once Bill Clinton designated a terrorist, he says, oh, you know what? Hey, they win. I'm sorry. I stop. I am done.
I'm done. Hey, Kyle, how does the Palestine Committee fit with Joseph Kwaradari and his dictates worldwide for Muslims to rise up in the street? Because they're going to do that in the future. How's the Palestine Committee entity fit with that?
Well, so obviously, when you're dealing with the Muslim Brotherhood, you're talking about an organization that operates conspiratorially. The only reason we have these documents to cite from them is because one of their members, named Ismail El-Barassi, got caught photographing structural supports of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. So, and the FBI raids his house, and inside the house are banker boxes worth of documents. And so now we know what we know. But we don't know exactly what the chain of transmission from Qaradawi to an organization like CAIR would be. But what we can see is the cause and effect. So we know Qaradawi calls for protests using certain language, and then we see, CAIR and Nihad Awad leading protests like the one they led in Washington, D.C. on August the 2nd.
I have to.
Well, let's see that one.
Well, hold on.
Where they match almost
well,
to the letter some of the language and certainly the concerns that are raised by Qaradawi. And it's not just, the evil Israelis killing the Palestinians. Qaradawi raised concerns about the failure of the Arab states to go to the defense of the Palestinians. He raised issues of accusing, the Egyptian military of treason because they aren't supporting the Palestinians, and so on and so forth. And we see these kinds of statements also making their way into these protests as well, with individuals wearing T-shirts featuring the black Rabia hand of the Muslim Brotherhood. It's a black hand showing a 4 on a yellow background, and that's the Rabia symbol, and it represents the protest of the Muslim Brotherhood against the Egyptian military. So Qaradawi called for something larger than and more specific than simply protest against Israeli military action. And we see all of these issues raised in those protests, not just. So it's not just the sort of anti-Israeli protests that you typically see. It's very specific, the kinds of behaviors we see coming out of it.
And to put a sharp point on that, am I on here? Am I on?
Yes.
To put a sharp point on that, part of CAIR, Council on American Islamic Relations, particularly their Washington, D.C. office, the focus of our enemies of the state, is to translate that Arab unrest that we're going to show in a moment on the streets of D.C. into some sort of public policy. How far, Kyle, is the CAIR office from the United States Congress?
It's right around the corner.
Right around the corner.
I've been to it.
That's
I've been to it. Yeah.
That's just coincidental. CAIR, by their own explanation in their mission statement, is to influence American public policy. That's why they're so close to the facility. So they want to take essentially all that's going on, then go to the legislators and say, hey, your problem is you're supporting that evil Israel country.
Right.
That's where all this happens.
Now,
Well, we know that well, go ahead, Mark. What were you going to say?
no, I just wanted to show that direct link connection to the global terrorists, and we're talking about this, and we really haven't shown it, that the link directly to the Palestinian Committee with Omar Ahmed, and we also have the direct link to Nihad Awad. They both are board members. Nihad Awad, the current director of CAIR, Omar Ahmed, the former senior executive of the Palestine Committee, is also the co-founder of CAIR. Musa Abu Mazurk sat on the same executive officer with Nihad Awad and Omar Ahmed. All three of them had many years and years of planning and business and relations. It's not just like I just met this guy on the street.
Nothing to see.
Nothing to see. Hey, you know what this would be like? Kyle, this would be like, you work for Frank Gaffney, correct?
Yes, sir.
This would be like Frank Gaffney being a specially designated global terrorist.
Right.
And Kyle worked with him and was in meetings with him for years and years and years. Then we go to Kyle. What do you know about Frank's background?
I don't know. I never
I never met the guy.
You mentioned Omar Ahmad, and when the FBI cut ties with CAIR in response to a question asked to them by some senators, including Senator John Kyle, they responded saying, because of the connection of CAIR National to the Palestine Committee and Hamas, and they specifically cite the executive director and the president emeritus, meaning Omar Ahmad and Nihad Awad. So the FBI knows this, and they have said that these gentlemen are their reason why they no longer associate with CAIR.
And we could establish without question, and we will as the show goes on, the hatred, the vitriol that the CAIR has for the Jewish world, for Israel. I mean, Operation Protective Edge put a lot of these people like Hassan Shibli right over the edge with their tweeting and all of this stuff.
Right.
Jew hatred like you can't believe. But watch this fascinating piece of footage. Now, Kyle, did you shoot this in Washington? The flag
We
footage?
received this video from someone that was at the protest,
Okay.
yes.
Watch this fascinating piece of footage. What date is this? Is this what date is this?
This is August the 2nd.
August 2nd, Washington,
August the 2nd
D.C.
protest that was organized by six organizations. The lead organization in most of the literature was the International Answer Coalition, But if you look at the 6 official organizing groups, 4 of them have ties to the Muslim Brotherhood.
Now, there's no audio on this, so we're going to have to explain to the listening audience what's going on here. So, Kyle, if you want.
I'll explain. Yeah, this one. Yeah. But no, what's happening right now, folks? Typically, if you've been at any of these protests, a lot of noise, and a couple of Muslims are holding up the Israeli flag, the Star of David blue and white flag. All of a sudden, they light it on fire. They're burning the Israeli flag.
And look who comes. Let me freeze it on that one so we can see who it is.
And they're chanting Allahu Akbar.
And
while
you
they
can
do
freeze
this,
the frame right here. You can see that man that just came in the picture right
as
there.
Mark is setting that up, Kyle, where is this? In front of what building?
I think this was, if I remember correctly, they organized outside the White House, and they were beginning to march. This was fairly early in the protest, I'm told, prior to the actual march. And what you had was a number of people ahead of the official line of march, which was designated by a banner and Nihad Awad, actually. And then a couple of youthful types were out in front of that protest. And so in this circle of youthful guys in kafiyas is a relatively old lady, hijabbed lady, and she's holding up an Israeli flag while the youth set it on fire and yell Allahu Akbar. As this happens, with a speed that is deceptive, Nihad Awad enters the circle, breaks up the lighting, speaks to the old lady quietly, and then ushers her away. So he was clearly taking a very active role in controlling the nature of the protest. He didn't want this kind of negative behavior to reach the press, and unfortunately for him, it did.
But
although
wait, he's
in most
a hero.
of the press reports,
Kyle,
nobody
Kyle.
pointed out that Nihad Awad personally broke this up.
Kyle, he's a hero. He went in and stopped. He defended Israel.
He
Kyle.
saved Israel.
He
saved
saved Israel.
Israel,
He
right.
loves Israel.
One might make that argument. I think given his history, the better answer would probably be that he is trying to preserve the nature of the protest for media purposes, and he didn't want somebody like you to get their hands on this footage, Tom.
It would probably
No,
make those
no.
interfaith requests a little more difficult with the
yeah.
Jewish community.
Well, we have revealed quite a bit on this show, and we went into the Philadelphia meeting, 1993 October, where Ashkar said, actually, in a meeting a month earlier in September 13th, Ashkar, speaking to Omar Ahmed, says we've got to downplay the brutal nature of Islam. We've got to find a different Islamic hue. We got to get away from our Islamic hue. And then a month later, actually 3 weeks later, they hand select Nihad Awad to run this new organization, CAIR, and his job is, as we have laid out here, Kyle, we've said CAIR's job is the Special Operations Division of the Hamas USA.
Right.
They're running an influence operation, so they can't have true Islamic State behavior. I bet you those guys that were burning that flag go, screw CAIR, we're joining the Islamic State.
It is much more fun to chop off heads than go to speeches.
Then go to speeches. So he had to manage that narrative, that visual, those optics, and he got in the middle there. So I don't know.
Well, you point out the 93 meeting. At the 93 meeting, they're discussing basically what to do because they know that eventually Hamas is going to get designated.
Right.
And at that meeting, I believe it's Omar Ahmad who says we have to, and I'm paraphrasing here, we have to have 2 messages, one for the Muslims and one for the West, one for the Americans. So that's kind of the nature of CAIR, is to live out that commandment by Omar Ahmad and to have 2 faces, to show one to the West and the other to the people they're trying to recruit, and so on and so forth.
Well, one of the things that dawned on me during the research was is this meeting at CAIR, what it was.
This is 1993.
1993 October.
Yeah.
This was a meeting of the Palestine Committee to form CAIR, and they brought in all the other people around it. This was
These
mob.
are heavyweights, right?
This was a mob meeting.
Yeah.
Hey, Gino, we have to form a new organization here. We need to get all the other,
competition.
everybody around to like come in here and like play. That's what it was.
That was his Italian gang.
No,
This is Italian Mexican.
Yeah, whatever. Italian Mexican. Yeah, the Mexican mob.
A very good point. And that last slide shows that the last
Well,
graphic.
you mentioned Ashgar too, and this is interesting. So one of the reasons we know the level of command and control that the Palestine Committee had was Ashgar raised some concerns because HLF was essentially poaching funds from his own group, which was, I think it was called Al-Aqsa, the Al-Aqsa Foundation or something like that. And so he runs up a complaint up the flagpole to the heavyweights saying, hey, look, I brought this guy over and we organized these things and the money that was raised should go to me. And they're having a lot of back and forth and all these things are being wiretapped by the FBI. But eventually it's Abu Marzouk and Omar Ahmad that are in on the call to convince Ashgar, look, just play it cool. You know, the committee made its decision and the funds are going to go to HLF. And ultimately they do. So even people like Ashgar were clear that, like, look, this is the command and control. He raised his complaints up the chain of command, and the response came back down.
That's very, very important.
Yes, it is
Mark,
very
you laid that out in the graphics, that their bylaws and their articles say if there's a dispute, the committee's going to resolve it, and the brothers must follow.
Yeah,
they even say something like,
it's at the top
may
of the
Allah
chart.
help us.
Right.
You know?
It's moving it up. That this graphic that we had earlier is anything that happens at the Holy Land Foundation or anything else gets moved straight up the chart. You know, this chart right here, and okay. But anyway, it's moved straight up that chart, right up the Palestine Committee, all the way up. Now, what's amazing about that is the command and control structure is what you're seeing, and the Palestine Committee reports directly to Hamas overseas, so they're getting their marching orders from Hamas, and straight down the chain and right back up the chain. Complaints go right down the chain. Orders go.
All right, now this show, folks, at 58 minutes after the hour, we understand this is complex stuff, but it's also very important to get out into the general public arena. Kyle, why don't you take about 30 seconds to sum up? We're going to have you back because there's so much more we need to deal. Maybe we'll have him on weekly to do a threat assessment as to what's going on this week around the world, around the United States. Take 30 seconds, sum up the point you want to leave with our audience today. Then you, Mark, with your slide.
Well, what I think is important for your audience to grasp is that as they watch these sort of activities take place, both abroad, you didn't mention it, but the protests, for instance, in France related to Operation Protective Edge were very, very violent. There were protests in England, protests in Yemen, protests in the United States. All of these are coming out of networks established by the Muslim Brotherhood. And they're being orchestrated by individuals that typically intelligence organizations aren't paying all that much attention to. Yusuf al-Qaradawi is not a man who holds an AK-47, whatever his personal dream may be one day. He's a man who writes books about Islamic law. That is the sole nature of his command and control, is the fact that he is a Sharia jurist and the Muslim Brotherhood considers him authoritative.
Okay,
so that's important to know and important to watch.
A very important point. And folks, we're revealing this because these are things to come, particularly with the Islamic State gaining strength. Mark, your concluding point with the slides so far where we are. We'll obviously continue this.
Well, we're just barely breaking the surface because if you look at the Palestine Committee, it directly oversaw the Holy Land Foundation. Everything in the Holy Land Foundation was convicted on 36 counts of providing material support to terrorism. It doesn't get any more clear than that. And they oversaw it. They ran it. They determined,
the Palestine Committee.
About the Palestine Committee, and this is probably the most important slide here is that It wrote the general strategy, approved the plan, approved the budget, and employees, appointed fund and boards of directors. All three of these guys, Musa Abu Mazurk, Omar Ahmed, Nihad Awad, all oversaw the Holy Land Foundation. And they're guilty of terrorism. And so is Omar Ahmed and Nihad Awad. I mean, how much clearer can you get? Kyle said they. Everybody knows this.
On that note, we got to go, but we will continue with this. Tom Trento, Enemies of the State, thank you. Kyle Shideler from Center for Security Policy. We'll see everybody tomorrow. Checking out on the October 21st, 2014. See you tomorrow.